Chapter 22. The airlock opened and in walked the Professor. His blue plastic overshoe protection crinkled against the laboratory floor. He entered the computer room and inserted his keycard into the console. "Hey, Rhea," he said as they hugged. "Hi, Uncle Eric," she replied. "Okay, tell me what happened." "Bob found a man on the cell print table who claims to have travelled in time." "What have you done with Bob?" asked the Professor. "Just told him to go back to his post. We don't have to worry about him. He's covered under the Official Secrets Act," replied Rhea. "You did the right thing. Bob doesn't have the clearance for that sort of thing. If we give him a bottle of his favourite whiskey, he will be content with that." "Where is he now, this time traveller?" asked Eric with a look of excitement on his face. "I put him in the specimen room. He's sedated for the moment." "Okay, let's see what happened," he said, as they accessed the security protocols. They watched as he rewound the footage and pressed play. The Professor turned the dial to speed up the playback, and they watched the experiment from the previous evening unfold. How Rhea had put the pig onto the table, the duplication, and how the pig hadn't lasted for long before its cellular cohesion gave out and ovine DNA ended up all over the floor. On the screen, he saw both himself and his assistant leave the room as they went home for the night. The image on the monitor changed erratically from the everyday look of the white room to being plunged into darkness as the storm knocked out the electricity and the generator kicked in. Then it went dark again with only the flashing of the orange beacon. Eric changed the playback speed once more, and they watched with awe and wonder as the monitor flashed and the cell print kicked into action. They both stared in fascination at the monitor, and layer by layer the cell print knitted DNA cells together at breakneck speed. "What the? It's not supposed to go that speed," said Rhea in utter disbelief. She put her hand out to slow down the video. "Let it go. I want to see what happens," replied the Professor, rubbing his hands with excitement. The Professor watched with enthusiasm as layer by layer the machine constructed something from the DNA goo. Arms, legs, organs, head, chest and face became recognizable. The final layers were added as the tip of Zac's nose, chest and kneecaps were complete. Needles inserted themselves into the brain, and a glow came from the capacitor room as his brain scan was uploaded. Blood was introduced, the needles retracted, and the body jerked on the table as electricity was pumped into it. The lights switched off and everything went silent. A moment later, light from the main corridor poured into the dark, and Bob Stafford could be seen entering the room on the monitor. The Professor's excitement rose as Bob performed CPR and brought Zac back to life. A big grin broadened across the Professor's face. "This makes no sense. He said he came from the future. But how?" asked Rhea. "I need to examine him." Rhea left the computer suite and disappeared into the specimen room. She returned with Zac laid on the trolley, and Eric went through to the main lab to help her lift him onto the triple scan table. "Pass me the adrenaline, dear," he asked Rhea while checking for a pulse and trying to get a vein. After swabbing the area, he injected the needle into the vein and pushed the plunger. He waved some smelling salts under Zac's nose, and Zac quickly came around. "I have so many questions," said the Professor. "It's you! You are younger and real," replied Zac. They chatted, and the Professor learned that this wasn't Zac's first trip in time, the Professor making notes as they talked. The conversation veered this way and that. They talked about Zac waking up in the lab several times. Fascinated, the Professor carried on making notes, and he included a mention of fibre. "This is all very fascinating, but I need to know something," said Eric. "Why are you here?" asked Rhea. "Precisely. Why are you here?" asked the Professor, scratching his head. "I need to find a man called Thomas Collins. He may tell me what happened to my father," said Zac. "I remember your father. It's a shame what happened to him," replied the scientist. "I don't know a man called Thomas Collins, though." "I remember a man of that name. He used to work in a corner shop down the road from where I lived. They got raided for selling counterfeit cigarettes, and he went to jail. He was a short guy and spoke with a London accent," replied Rhea. "That's him," replied Zac. She walked over to the computer and tapped on the keyboard. Entering his name in the search engine, she found him almost straight away on a dating website. He'd even added an address online. "Before you go, I need to do some more tests," said the Professor. He took Zac's blood pressure, did a brain scan, and took a swab to test DNA. The Professor concluded his findings and approved Zac fit enough to go outside, with Rhea as a chaperone, of course. "Make sure you take as many photos and recordings as possible so that we can match the evidence together in the future," said the Professor. Moments later, the old man grabbed some spare clothes from the car and brought them through for Zac. Zac got dressed, and the Professor and Rhea chatted for a while, discussing the dangers of going to find Fat Tommy. She reassured her uncle that the karate lessons he had made her take when she was younger had proven useful sometimes, and that he didn't need to worry, as 2 of them versus 1 fat man would be okay. Happy to leave them to it, the Professor bid them both good night and went home. Zac finished putting his shoes on. Rhea slid on her coat, switched off the lights, and they both exited through the airlock. Walking up the stairs with someone else was a pleasant feeling, and he was glad he was no longer alone in this weird past. At the top of the stairs, they walked across the flagstone flooring of the Abbey, through the big arched doors and out of the building, through the graveyard and towards the car park. With Rhea in the driving seat and Zac in the back underneath a blanket, the car started up, and Rhea drove the car down the road towards the rising roadblock and the security hut. "Evening, Bull," said Rhea as she pulled up, showing him her security pass. The big man leant down towards the car, peering inside. His military frame towered over the car, with his tight shirt still struggling to fit, even though it was an extra large. Every time they met, she was reminded of the stories he used to tell her when she'd walk to the lab from school and wait in the booth for her uncle to come and pick her up. Stories about how his friends used to call him Staffy, because it was a type of bulldog, packed with muscles, built for strength, and that was Bob all over. Except for Rhea. Caring for her when she was little, while she waited to be collected from the booth, meant he had become fond of her, and very protective, the bigger brother she never had. He had even taught her some karate moves that her old dojo hadn't, so she could protect herself when he wasn't around. "Evening, miss," he replied, looking around. "Everything all right now? Did you find that man?" "Yes, all is good. I think you scared him off. Uncle Eric came to help me look for him and check on the computers to make sure he hadn't stolen anything. But everything is okay, and we haven't seen him since." "I will keep an eye out and double the watch just in case, and I will let you know if I see him," he replied, swiping her card. "All good for now, miss. See you tomorrow." "Good night, Bull." She drove off.